Welcome to the Draft Indy podcast. I'm Grant Sinning, and one of you has an echo. I don't know who it is, but it's not me. But anyways, tonight I am joined by Alex Jacobson and Brian Krosky, and we are going to talk about the first preseason game versus the Bills
Is it
with
fixed
our
now?
good friend. Huh?
Is the echo fixed now?
Yes.
Okay. I just unplugged and replugged my headphones. I was hoping that would work.
Back to being professional. We are going to talk about the Bills preseason game with Kyle Rodriguez, who will be joining us in just a few minutes. And we will be talking about some wide receiver and tight end watch lists going forward into the 2017 season. Probably won't be as in-depth as our running back segment from last week. If you didn't get a chance to listen, go check that out. That was good fun. So we will, real quick, we got some news and notes from around the Colts, and so Josh Boyce got cut. No surprise. It doesn't matter. He wasn't going to make the roster anyways. We signed a 6'4" guy from Nebraska who's played 4 snaps at wide receiver ever. So that's interesting. Hugh Thornton, week to week. Hugh Thornton week to week. And honestly, I don't know, man. I don't even think that he was getting close. Like, I don't know. It was one of those situations where he was on the roster bubble even though he was the first team guy. Because he's just underperformed and he's been hurt constantly. So it's no surprise. They've got Good playing right guard, which was Hugh Thornton's natural spot. They've had Joe Haig play some right guard, and Joe Wrights can play right guard as well. So, he becomes expendable after a point. Harrison's been playing guard. Blythe played pretty well when he played at guard in the game, and we'll get to that with Kyle here in just a few minutes. But other than that, not really any other news about the team I can think of besides the kind of this game notes. So let's go ahead and bring in Kyle. Let's send him an invite. So guys, I got to ask you a question. Something that's been on my mind for the past few days.
Are we going to be doing this every week now?
I don't know. But what do you guys think Chuck Pagano's favorite food is?
Grits.
Okay, the layup answer is obviously grits. But
Thanks for the softball.
That was it is softball. But the real answer, though, what do you think?
I don't know. Kyle,
hold on.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, Kyle Rodriguez. And we were just discussing what is Chuck Pagano's favorite food.
Grits.
Exactly.
I'm assuming that was the answer for everybody across the board. We can all go home.
I think that's I didn't really think that one through as much as I should have. That was pretty easy. We could go to Ryan Grigson's favorite food. What do you guys think?
I have no idea.
That's a good one.
Probably caviar. I could see him being someone who orders insane amounts of caviar and only eats a little bit of it. He decides he doesn't like it, even though he ordered a bunch of it.
He probably gets extravagant fish, like this giant fish and broccoli, and he only.
Any kind of seafood, I could see that. I feel
he's a musclehead.
Big red meat kick for a long time. Now he's going back to fish.
I don't know. There's something stinky going on.
He's on that Dwayne Johnson diet.
I don't know, guys. I don't know. All right, so hey, let's get talking about this game that was on Saturday, and it was kind of just blah. Really, not really a whole bunch of fun positives to take away. And being the first preseason game, you don't really expect much. But I got a question. I'm gonna shoot roundtable style. Who do you think stood out the most in a good way? And we'll do it in a bad way the next go around. But who do you think stood out the most in a good way, Kyle?
For me, it was Zach Kerr. I think there was a lot of positives on the defensive line, which we were probably all expecting. But Zach Kerr, T.Y. McGill too, but Zach Kerr doing it earlier in the game against a little bit higher level competition was probably the one who stood out the most for me. Just consistently flashing, consistently solid, getting pressure on on passing plays as well as getting a few stops in the run game. But overall, I would say Kerr. Which again, I mean, that's where we knew our depth was, right? The depth on the Colts was the defensive line. So to see some flashes from there was a good confirmation.
Yeah, I think he played really well, and he probably played 3 tech, 5 tech, right? Mostly.
Yeah, I wasn't really looking for where they were lining up, but he wasn't playing those, so that's what I would assume.
Actually, I think I can probably answer that question because that's actually something I was one Kyle stole my guy with Zach Kerr, but the way they were lining up Kerr is I was kind of just looking at like what they were doing with their fronts, and they had a lot of 4-man fronts. And Cole was coming out the left tackle, and they lined up Kerr at 5 tech along the right tackle a lot of the times. And so I just wanted to see where they're lining up because T.Y. McGill was playing a lot of 1 tech when Perry wasn't in the game, and when Perry was in the game, he was playing 3 tech, and then they lined Kerr up. But I saw they were using Kerr as their strong side guy, so I thought that was interesting that they were putting him out that far because we expected him. We know from Alex that he was playing a lot of 1 tech, and we expected him just to rotate with David Perry, but now it looks like, well, for the time being, he's a strong side defensive end lining right up against the right tackle, which I thought was interesting.
And the interesting thing about that, though, and I think probably the easiest kind of point to make here is that if they are playing 4-man front more, it's going to be more of that one gap penetration, which is the one tech, the 3 type role, where they're going to be asked to penetrate a lot, and that's what he's good at. He's not really good at holding a double team. You want him to get after it, get in there, one guy. I don't know.
I thought he did pretty well at the double team part, though. At least from what I could see, I thought he held his own.
I just think I think we'll see. I mean, we're hearing from Alex soon, I think, about percentage of fronts and all that kind of stuff, right? Coming up next in his charting series, which we'll plug if you haven't checked it out. He's got a new one out this morning, afternoon-ish time, on safeties, and he's done linebackers and defensive line. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't. Brian, what's one player that really stood out to you from this preseason game?
Well, since I kind of just mentioned Kerr, I guess I'll go with the guy that I was talking a lot about this week, was T.Y. McGill, which, like I said, I was surprised where he was lining up, playing a lot of 1 tech or 1 tech, 3 tech, mostly one gap penetrating. I took a hell of a lot of time trying to make that collage image that I was, just because there were so many plays where I was just watching the game where obviously you expect the guy lined up right on the interior of the line jumping off the snap to be the first one, but I mean it was literally every single play that T.Y. McGill was the first one to hit contact against an offensive lineman with at least within probably a half a second quicker than anyone else did. And it's not only that he was hitting he was hitting offensive line first, but I mean he was in the backfield. He had this great deflected pass where he leaped into E.J. Manuel and deflected a pass. He had a couple stops behind the line of scrimmage. So I guess T.Y. McGill, I just didn't expect that much explosion out of him, realizing that he is 320 pounds.
Yeah, and he had a killer 3-cone time. If I remember right, he was in the 100th percentile 3-cone time. And we're bringing in Garrett. Garrett, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Sorry I'm late. Oh, hey, Kyle.
Hey, Garrett.
And Kyle's here. All right, so Alex, one player that stood out to you in a good way from the game.
The easy answer that Kyle and Brian took, the defensive line, that's definitely the guys who stood out to me the most. But outside of them, I'll cheat and say the edges as a collective all looked good. O'Kine showed some good steps in the right direction towards being an actual edge. He stood out to me. Trevor Bates looked good. They're using him the way I thought they would use him, and he looked fluid. He wasn't making too many plays, but he looks like he knows what he's doing, and at least knows what he's doing in the non-rushing parts of games. Rushing, he's still a little weak, but off ball, I think he could play. And then Kurt Magid, PFF liked him. I agreed. he looked good, and while I don't, and then Ron Thompson, I saw a few pressures here and there from him. So all those backup defensive outside linebacker pressure guys looked really good
And
for what you'd expect.
I was gonna say O'Kine and Majit for mine because O'Kine really showed some serious speed, and I noticed it last year when I was at training camp. Dude's got some serious get off. Now I don't know if he's a snap jumper or whatever, but I mean he's a big guy who can move quick, and that's just something that you gotta try and use. But with O'Kine, the thing that you noticed, especially on run plays, was over pursuit so hard. Like he just went forward, and if they pulled some sort of juke on him, he wasn't setting an edge. I mean,
Which should be expected because he's
Right.
incredibly new to the position and also is weak laterally, and
right.
that fits his profile.
I mean, if he plays this year, he is coming in on third down with one directive, and that's go forward. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. And Majit, yeah, PFF liked him, but I'll tell you what Majit did that impressed me the most. He was really good against the run. He made some seriously good stops against the run consistently, and he played a lot of snaps. He probably played 40% of the outside linebacker snaps, if not more. And I was very pleased to see that from a guy who didn't really play much last year, coming off of I think it was some sort of hip injury. So he didn't really do much in the off season at all. So it's good to see a guy like that, come in with fresh legs and see what he can do, see how he can develop. Garrett, what about you? Who's one player that stood out to you in a good way?
I really don't have as many positive takeaways from this game as you guys seem to, and I think it's because I only watched the game. I watched the full game once and the first half twice. So, and when I watched them, I was mostly focusing on the secondary level of the defense, the linebackers and the secondary. So I didn't really pay as much attention to the guys who were flashing athletic traits like Kerr and O'Kine. But I'm glad to hear that you guys saw some good things. The linebackers and secondary was about as good as you could expect. Like Morrison had this one, he just completely underran. His play took a bad angle on a long Bills run. C.O. Moore got embarrassed a couple times. Nobody really looked very aggressive. Patrick Robinson got scorched by, I think it was Marquise Goodwin on that. Was that a touchdown? I don't even remember. But
No, it was an incompletion.
Oh, it was? Okay.
It was an incompletion, but yeah, I remember I sent you the tweet to you and Kyle about I just freezed the point where he went for the push and his arm was completely in dead air and he was actually 2 yards to the side of Goodwin off his release.
Yeah. And then Green got beat once, which that's okay. He looked good to me otherwise playing the run and stuff, and he obviously can run unlike anybody else on this defense. But yeah, I didn't see as much stuff. Very much stuff to get excited about at that level of play. And then on offense, I was mostly watching the running game, which is not super fun to do without all 22. And also,
what running game?
Talking about Ferguson, Todman, and whatnot. So I was pretty underwhelmed, even by preseason game standards.
Indianapolis Colts leading rusher Stephen Morris.
Oh my God.
Yeah, great. Okay, so you know what? We'll just go in a backwards order here. Garrett, you kind of already answered your question. Who stood out to you in a bad way the most out of all of those players you just mentioned? Basically, half the defense.
And really Ferguson. I just don't see it with him. I mean, obviously he didn't have much success running the ball, but I mean he kind of was where he needed to be in pass protection for most of the time. But when he was just getting lit up. I can't see him really standing up for 16 games of that kind of punishment at his size. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a disappointment considering he has been the only hope this year at running back unless we sign someone.
He's a part-time scat back, and he's not going to be any more than that.
Yeah, it's I didn't have a lot of hope to begin with.
I remember all the training camp tweets talking about was the first 2 days or here we go Josh Ferguson, and we realized he didn't put on any pads, so he's probably an excellent two-hand touch or flag football player when you're not putting on any pads, but yeah, you can just tell, even just with the pads and just contact just slows him down and just changes so many things about his game.
Yeah, he doesn't have it mentally, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, what about you? Player that stood out in a bad way.
For me, in that linebacker group, they all looked pretty bad, but Nate Irving looked pretty easily the worst. He didn't. I remember the first play, I believe it was, he got juked by Shady McCoy, which is not the worst thing in the world to happen to you because they'll do that to a lot of people. But then he was overrunning angles all day. He missed a few tackles, I believe. Just nothing good. And now that C.O. Moore is hurt for at least some time, it looks like the inside linebacker job might be his, which is not a good thing, although C.O. Moore wouldn't be much better based on what we saw.
But this is why the whole, like, we hate D'Qwell Jackson, but there's literally, like, nobody anywhere close to him on this roster. Like, we were the most worried about pass coverage for linebackers, and they were so bad against the run on Sunday, like, or Saturday, whenever it was. Like, like Alex said, just overrunning stuff, just taking bad angles, just not, in general, looking anything positive.
And that's like the one thing that Irving could do when he came out of Denver was people thought he was going to be a good run stopper and he could come in as like a first and second down guy occasionally until it realized that we don't have before Jarrell left. But now that he's started, he can not only defend the pass, but like we said, he can't even do what he was supposed to do. So.
And for linebackers, when it comes to defending the pass, unless you're like a really plus athlete, all I really expect or want from you is just to be in the right place and just make the quarterback take like a smaller window or make him put more air under the ball to get it to the guy, because that's about the best you can hope for. And D'Qwell can do that, and I think Morrison can do that, but yeah, neither of them are really going to be. I mean, certainly not anything close to like what a guy like Luke Kuechly can do, for example, in coverage.
Yeah, and when the Colts do their cover one, and they have, or in cover two, in fact, they have these linebackers in man coverage, and that's about if Nate Irving is outrunning run plays and taking bad angles on a pass play when he's lined up against running backs or tight ends, it's going to be even worse. So, go us.
Go team.
Brian.
Well, I had two choices, and I was hoping that one of them would get passed down to me. But unfortunately, Josh Ferguson and Nate Irving were both picked. I'm going to cop out here and just say the whole run defense of the back seven was just really bad. Because I remember I vined a play, and it was the play where Walden was supposed to set the edge, and Vontae was by himself.
Yeah.
And Vontae like stood on his heels and watched the whole play, and Walden didn't set the edge. So like, and that's. Like
the edge setting were extraordinaire, Eric Walden to you.
And that's like the worst case scenario is where Shady McCoy cuts it back, and then like Walden's there to set the edge, and Vontae's still overall a pretty good run defender at cornerback. He's a great athlete and a good tackler, and so we'd expect that. And both of them didn't do their job. And so Walden was just because he overran the play. Vontae just looked really lazy. I guess it was the first preseason game, so I get that, but I just hope that's not a thing to come of. Like a cop out on our defense is that we can kind of like set the edge, and like it didn't work. So that's kind of what annoyed me. It was just that one play where they had two guys where like all you had to do was just kind of stand in one spot, and you would have run right into you, and neither of them did that.
And just to be clear, it was not just that play or just those players. The team couldn't set an edge all day. Like the Bills just could run outside on us on like every play, and they'd get 9-10 yards time.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, same question.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Scott Tolzien. And not because I was disappointed by his play or expected more from him, but because, okay, I am very, like, anti-backup quarterback in general. Like, backup quarterbacks mean nothing to me. They're all bad. If you have a backup quarterback in, you're going to lose unless the other team is bad. So, like, it doesn't matter to me. I never get the like, fight over. Like, right now in Dallas, what are they going to do? They don't have a good backup quarterback. Nobody has a good backup quarterback. They all suck. We have teams that are employing RG3 as starting quarterback, so we don't have backup quarterbacks.
Ooh.
Hey,
but
there's a team in the NFL with Christian Ponder, Blaine Gabbert, and Tom Kaepernick on it. Okay, so
Yeah.
can Tolzien run? Is he athletic? I have no idea.
No.
There was a
back.
clip against the Vikings from a game that he subbed in where he does.
The Packers, yeah, when he was on the Packers.
Yeah.
He's like a legend in Wisconsin.
That one play.
Yeah. But I feel like if you were, I mean, because all backup quarterbacks are bad, but at least get one who has like a 4.5 speed, you know?
Well, like the thing is the one thing that backup quarterbacks are good for is like evaluating second and third string skill players in the
Yeah.
preseason, right? And so Scott Tolzien, though, it was so terrible on Sunday that we couldn't get to that. And because you don't have all 22 either, so you can't see them. You can't even see running routes unless you get like one play out of the whole game where you get a decent replay. So like you have nothing to go on any of these skill players on offense in the passing game, and it's unfortunate for us because again we're looking at these guys like Tavon Smith. The few things that I saw out of him, okay, there's a little bit of a base to work there with, but what kind of opportunity was he getting, even if they were scheming every other pass play for him when he was in the game, just because the throws are all over the place? Philip Dorsett, makes a couple of great moves in the open field to get open, but you never even really get to see him have a chance at the ball because
the ball's not even close.
The ball's not even close. The guy is open by about 15 yards.
Oh, that one play made me so sad.
So it's just like it's just depressing more than anything else.
I think that's a good point. And
as an Indianapolis Colts fan, I'm so tired of seeing backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch this preseason at all.
I was a little disappointed to see the formations that they favored especially early in the game on the first drive. It seemed kind of more of what we've had over the last couple of years, more I formation, more 12 personnel, multiple tight ends, which really is not the strength of this roster. And I'm hoping that it's just a preseason thing because I believe that live reps for your blocking, even your depth players on your offensive line and tight ends are probably more valuable than for your skill guys just practicing running routes. But that still made me a little wary.
Yeah, they were using a lot of Doyle in the blocking in the first quarter.
And with Tolzien at quarterback, they literally are just practicing running routes, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so next question, and I'm going to start out the answers because I was going to pick pretty much everyone you guys picked. I was actually going to pick Tolzien just because it was bad. And now apparently there's a quarterback controversy for the second string, whatever manufacturer.
Might as well go with Stephen Morris just because he's faster.
Why not? Who cares?
See what we can do outside the play structure. This is what Andrew does anyway.
If Luck gets hurt and they put in Stephen Morris, then we get a higher draft pick, and I'm in for that.
That's what we thought. Yeah. Well, that's what we thought.
That's all any of us care about, anyways.
Dude, you can't blame Matt Hasselbeck for going out there and giving it one more good try, dude. I mean, the amount of grit and determination that guy showed every game. Come on, man. But anyways, now we're going to talk. Let's shift to a little rookie talk. Who was and I'm going to go first. The rookie that stood out the most to me was Joe Haeg. I got a Joe Haeg man crush over here, guys. Played, I think, right tackle, right guard, and left tackle. Played them all very, very well. I am super excited to see this guy continue to develop. I predicted him as a starter on the 53-man roster, and I am still sticking to that, especially if Thornton is week to week until he's cut. So, that's what I think is going to happen. And Good, a little bit hurt, but I mean, Good really didn't show me anything at guard that I thought he could have. It doesn't fit his skill set. It really doesn't. He's a tackle, and I don't think, and I think that's, the perception is, tackles can play guard. Guards can not usually play tackle, and I don't think that he's a guard at all. I think that he's a tackle. It's better for his build physically and what he can do athletically. And I know that sounds weird because he's not the most athletic guy, but I just feel like his entire his footwork set and his base is more set to a tackle steps than they are guard steps, because he's just got such a wide base. And playing guard, you've got to be smaller, mauler type guy. Not smaller, but you've got to play smaller in a way. And I don't think that he's there yet. But I'll go back to Kyle. Kyle, who is the rookie that stood out to you the most?
Are we gonna do a negative one too, or is it all
fair
game?
Either fair game, good or bad. And I know where you're going with this.
Well, LaRaven Clark was bad. But that was, to some extent, that was kind of to be expected. He's the most raw, at least in my opinion, of the offensive linemen that got picked, and that was to be expected. But I think really the guy who stood out the most to me was Trevor Bates. I mean, the guy can just play, and there was just no film available for him, and so I just I had no idea what to expect really. Didn't get to didn't get to go down to training camp this year, so have literally like seen nothing of him. So I was just impressed just to see him make a few plays, just in terms of having some on-field awareness there on the outside. Being able to sniff out the ball. I mean, just like little stuff like that, where you get a late round pick like that. Obviously special teams is going to be early on, and so the ability just to make plays around the ball you can be found there. But even again, just that on-field awareness, and then on the outside, knowing what he was doing, even if the pass rush is still pretty raw, there's some skills to work with.
Yeah, in that respect, he was really impressive, not just for a rookie, but from a small school rookie. I mean, I had never seen a single snap or down of his play, so I was even surprised by just how stout he looked. I was expecting more of an undersized guy. I don't even remember his height, weight, but he did look like an NFL player in the way he described it, also physically. So I was very surprised and impressed by that.
He's Mathis's size. Like they're like almost identical in size. Like height, weight. Build might be a little different, but that was the first time I've ever seen the guy in pads play. I've seen some, what's his name, moving the sticks. Daniel Jeremiah gave Brent some bones earlier with some vines, but I
think it was like 4 plays.
It was like 4 plays.
I did see those. Yeah,
it was like 4 plays. So I mean, getting a lot of plays in.
Career highlight tape for Trevor Bates.
Yeah, and again, the Maine Black Bears or Bearcats or whatever the hell they are, they would not respond to my emails, but I tried, guys. I did.
I feel like I have like this weird conspiracy theory that he didn't actually like really play. Like he played that one game where Daniel Jeremiah showed, and like he actually did. Like Maine probably has nothing to give you, and Grigson just like, I'm gonna pick this player that's never played ever before and just see how good he is.
He just has an uncle in the league office somewhere.
I mean, he made up an entire school, Mars Hill. I mean, that place doesn't exist, but we drafted a guy from there.
Maybe a starter, yeah.
Yeah, who might be a starter, which is, this is pretty crazy. Garrett, let's go with you. Rookie.
Like I said, TJ Green, he was a step behind Marquise Goodwin on the steep coverage, and he got shook by maybe Marquise Goodwin again. I don't remember the Bills' backup wide receiver names, but this other guy on a route, I think that Kyle Fine or something.
Yeah.
But that was like a decent round. He was kind of peeking into the backfield when he thought he had it. So just kind of a basic rookie mistake. Otherwise, he looked like what I expected and why I was actually okay with him as a second-round pick. He's really good at playing the run. He can, if they can get some good blitz looks with him, then he's going to be a terror because he is just absurdly quick and strong. I'm just excited.
They blitzed
him once, and I don't think he got near the guy.
No, he didn't, but he started off like pretty far.
Yeah, I know.
And, the 10 yards he covered happened pretty quick.
So I'm excited. I think we'll see more good things from him. I think that what I saw in college has carried over to the NFL so far.
Actually, I want to say the play he blitzed was the play where Goodwin beat Patrick Robinson, where he was between him and Adams. I can't remember. I think it was the play he blitzed on.
Yeah, I remember.
Because Green was blitzing and Adams was in cover 1. I think, that was the play.
Yeah. I will say I don't think it was overall. It was a very impressive day for the rookies. Nobody really stunned me or shocked me. Not to be a sad sack.
No. I mean, it's the first preseason game.
First
time they're getting the tempo, and we'll continue obviously to podcast and continue to talk about them, and as we go along and see how they've developed, if they have, and whatnot throughout the preseason. Except for the Bengals game, we're not gonna podcast about the Bengals game. I've already decided that's a group decision because the Bengals game is always just terrible. I mean, it is bad. I will watch the first snap and then I will turn it off because it's gonna be Scott Tolzien for 60 minutes, and we already got enough of
Scott Tolzien. I don't need that.
Stephen Morris is going to be too important to play in that game.
Yeah, by then he will be, man. I mean, or we'll have Josh Freeman or Ryan Lindley back by then. I mean, it's serious. Brian, what about a rookie for you?
Yeah, LaRaven Clark was really, really bad. There's still nothing there in terms of technique. I tried to point that out as best as I could. But, he wasn't there. But Austin Blythe actually kind of surprised me. I thought he was really good. I was like, who's 63? That's, holding his own in run blocking and pass blocking, because I realized at that point he was playing right guard after Haig moved to left tackle because whoever was playing left tackle went after Costanzo was like terrible. I don't know who it was.
Some guy named Grafe.
Yeah, he was.
What?
He was so bad they had actually moved Haig over to left tackle, which I don't think they really want to play him there anytime soon. But I thought Blythe actually was really good, and he's always the forgotten guy in like the Colts offensive line schematics that we're talking about. And I mean, I'm not saying he's started quality, and I don't know enough about him, but I know there are a lot of people that saw him as a fringe day 2 player, and I think he was he our last pick?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know. I thought he held his own, and I know Brandon Thorne, who just like watches offensive line in like 15 hours a day, said he liked what Blythe was doing, and I agreed. I think he's a keeper for just depth at this point.
Yeah.
And that's something we've not had in a long time. Alex, rookie for you.
I agree with pretty much everything said. Austin Blythe wasn't going to be my guy. I thought he looked the best out of any of those third-string guys. He looks better than Harrison already, and
True.
though I don't expect him to take Harrison's job, I think he'll make the roster. Brian Kelly, he looked solid. He didn't look too great. I think he gave up a few pressures and things in the run game, although the run game as a collective is a mess. But against Rex Ryan's defense, the guys on the Bills commentating staff for the game, who are awful, by the way, they kept pointing out how interested it would be to watch Kelly against the Rex Ryan defense that will throw different looks at you, and they were right to a degree, and I think he struggled with that a little bit, but to the same extent, I think that this is a good learning experience for him, and he can build off of that.
There was that one play where they double A-gap blitzed.
Yeah.
Oh, that was they wrecked
and
that.
nobody touched either of them.
Yeah.
And I tweeted about it last week, sometime before the game, remembering when we played the Jets like 3 years ago, and Chandler Harness got engage 8 on, and I think I talked about it a little bit last week, but blitz, like Rex Ryan, Irsay's comment about Rex in the preseason and blitzing is totally right on, and I mean, you knew he was going to do it, and that was just a well-timed blitz, and they hit the A-gap with 4 guys, and I mean...
Rex Ryan just wants to hurt every other quarterback in the league just to bring everyone else down to his roster level.
Yeah, but I was actually fairly impressed with Ryan Kelly. He had one where it looks like he gets pancaked, but he tripped over Jack Doyle's, but it's kind of pancaked. But he's going against Marcel Darius,
who that's another thing.
Steroided PED using Marcel Darius. But still, I mean, going against one of the league's best defensive tackles in your first outing and not, dying or not, looking completely terrible. Mm-hmm. That's a good start. And
no, I thought Kelly was good.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not horrendous, then for an offensive lineman, then it's good. I think that's a fairly safe thing to say. If you're not being like, whoa, what's that guy doing? Then, it's
I am interested though as the preseason goes on. Nobody's gonna blitz like Rex, but I mean that's the biggest thing I thought that Kelly could bring to the table was being able to get the line in order pre-snap. And if he can't do that, even if he's a better even if he's a much better blocker than I don't even want to talk about our centers of the past, it's still like the line's still gonna have its biggest weakness, which is those stunts and creative blitzes that are coming up the middle. Like that's still gonna be an issue if Kelly isn't like one of those guys who just has it totally together intellectually.
True, and a lot of that goes again, preseason, but also luck also helps with that as well. And
I'm sure Philbin will have a heavy hand in that as well.
And Tolzien is not as smart, obviously, as Luck, and especially picking out and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of digress from that point. But
well, I mean, that not only just Kelly. There's two rookies on that starting O line, on that first team O line right now, and they're playing right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also true.
Yeah, I'm not blaming Kelly for Saturday.
Yes,
I just think that'll be interesting. I just think that's what I'm going to be interested in watching is how they continue to handle those stunts and stuff as the rest of the preseason goes on.
I thought just straight, like Garrett said, they were doing a lot of like heavy backfield things in the first quarter. I thought just like straight one-on-one man blocking him and Uhort looked really, really good together. Just like running up and just pushing guys off the line. I thought they created like some really good. I don't know. I just thought they had really good pushes in the running game for Josh Ferguson to mess it up.
Okay, so let's shift gears. Saturday, first preseason game against the Ravens. What's one thing that, we talked about it last week, what's one thing that you're really interested in seeing coming from the first game to the next game? And for me, it's honestly, I'm ready to see Andrew Luck take a snap. It might be an easy answer, but I mean, it's been a
Last
little
time
while.
we saw him take a snap was the Carolina game, right?
Yeah, I think so. Or it was the Denver game, because that
The
was
Denver
after.
game.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was the Denver
Oh, I
game.
thought the Denver game was first,
No,
and then
it
it
was
went
after.
to Carolina.
Mm,
Okay.
Carolina
Denver's the one
beat
where he was out of the pocket and got wrecked in the ribs.
Yep,
Oh, that's right.
with an accident like a freight train or something
Cam
like that, like
Grigson's
a car
fault.
accident. But anyways, so for
All
me,
Grigson's fault.
watching Andrew Luck take a snap with Ryan Kelly, seeing if he's comfortable in the pocket, see if he's making any changes at the line, adjusting, see where his accuracy is at. If he throws an interception, we're gonna get roasted like crazy on Twitter. And it just happens because someone's gonna ESPN or NFL or whoever's gonna tweet, and Andrew Luck got picked off, and then you'll just have like 600 people retweet it like, haha, mid-season form. So, but we'll see. But I think just getting him back and getting him comfortable is going to be one of the biggest things that I'm hoping to see, kind of going forward. And so, what about you, Alex?
I'm interested in seeing who can differentiate themselves in the skill position battles because we didn't get a really clear answer on last week. Because in the running backs, Ferguson was getting a lot of first-team looks, which should indicate that they think highly of him. But based on how bad he was, that might be something they're going to reconsider and give more looks to Robert Turbin and these guys. And then in wide receiver, none of the people really differentiated themselves. Chester Rogers looked good. He got the touchdown. Tavon Smith, they were trying to get involved. And then Josh Boyce, who they just cut, he was the first receiver I saw off the bench, which was interesting. So got a bunch more guys that they'll look at. And the newly signed guy from Nebraska, I don't know his name, but interested to see him too.
Brian.
I mean, kind of along the same line. Obviously, now that Boyce is cut, it kind of limits the amount of snaps that we can see the other wide receivers who aren't of the first four, if you count Quan Bray. So, I mean, Chester Rogers, excuse me, that was a great play that he had to break the tackle. I think it was like a 57-yard touchdown. That's got to be somewhat exciting, especially because we didn't see a lot of yards after catch from Dorsett in that game. And then I think Jordan Todman's the other guy I'm really looking forward to seeing because I don't see it with Josh Ferguson, and I wanted to, and I don't. I mean, we know if Gore's there, Turbin's kind of slow, but he's going to be the backup, and we know what he offers. It's not a lot. So I want to see what Todman does because, I mean, that screenplay was pretty easy to score on, but he just really looked natural and fluid running that. I don't know, it just looked really good, and he has speed, so I'm interested to see how much he gets because hopefully Ferguson isn't taking as many first-team snaps.
I really don't care who's taking first-team snaps.
Garrett, what are you looking for in the Ravens game?
I'm interested to see more of Hassan Ridgeway, just because I really don't feel like I got a good sense of him in this first game. He had one good play, I think it was a pressure early on, then he got pancaked a little later on. So, those were the only two plays that really stood out to me. So I'm hoping he separates himself a little bit more this time.
Yeah, he was really quiet.
Yeah, interesting. Kyle?
I'm interested to see. The second game isn't the trial run as much as the third preseason game is, but I'm interested to see with Luck in what that offense, what they're running. Just kind of again, this is his first action since Denver, and so I'm really. I mean, I want to see him play. I want to see how he reacts to live ball. But I'm also interested to see how Chudzinski uses him. Just even with their base stuff. Obviously, Saturday looked like a lot more, two tight end personnel or a tight end and an H back. But I'd like to see what they do with Luck actually in the game. See if we can get all three of our starting receivers out there, Luck out there, just to kind of see what kind of combinations we're seeing from the receivers and how that all works together.
If they do stick with the two tight end personnel, I'm going to be a little upset because I really thought that they were going to go more back to just like a 11 personnel, especially considering the way they just they put so much money into Dwayne this offseason, but then they didn't really invest in any upgrades behind him. So they didn't really give any indication that they wanted, to use multiple tight ends in their base packages.
If they keep with the two tight end set, it continues to show that the coaching staff and front office is just on two completely different pages.
That's what I'm afraid of, especially because I thought that, at least if they were going to bring back this coaching staff and this management, that they were going to go forward with a more unified vision, that they had sat down and stop laughing at me.
And speaking
I'm
of
just
Dwayne,
laughing because that's the only Colts, Dolphins, and Browns, the only three franchises that would do that.
They spent a first-round pick on a slot receiver. They've spent $70 million on a slot receiver. Then they pay their one tight end, and they're gonna play 22 or whatever.
And speaking of Dwayne Allen, he was wide open, and Scott Tolzien missed him so bad. I mean, just going back to it just made me mad. I forgot.
I think it's funny though. I just wanted to make a quick point. I know obviously we're not trying to put too much stock into the preseason games. We're all well aware of what's going on, but pretty much anything that we saw from the first game is gonna have no impact whatsoever on the regular season because Henry Anderson and Kendall Langford both be playing, so they could have completely different defensive line setups. They probably won't, but we're not going to be talking about McGill, Kerr, and Ridgeway as much. And that was our main focus. And Gore wasn't playing, and the offense. Obviously, we don't expect Tolzien to say anything. So the two biggest strengths of the team, obviously defensive line and offensive just prowess, have had no significant showing whatsoever. And we're still completely blanked on what to expect.
So the only parts of the game that actually mattered that might count in the regular season were all the terrible parts.
Yeah. And on that note, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And
Thanks,
we got a small announcement here. Kyle will be joining the podcast regularly this season as a panel member. The brand's expanding. Kyle, busy man though, getting married here soon. Again, congratulations. But once that stuff kind of settles down, and he should be joining us quite regularly, and we're very excited to have you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. You guys have done a great work, at the site and whatnot over the last year or two, and so it'll be fun, a nice way to stay plugged in and whatnot. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you later, Kyle. Thanks for coming.
See you guys.
You didn't know that? I thought I told you about that.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe in the DMs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I got to find out with the rest of the audience. So that's good.
Yeah. No. It's exciting. It's very exciting.
It's a surprise for all of us.
Right. Kyle's. Really, when I first got started in doing this kind of stuff, it was Kyle who I looked up to, and I know that sounds weird, but I mean, Kyle was doing good stuff for a long time, and
he's always been my internet father figure.
Yeah, right? he's pretty much the father of Colts Twitter, at least the parts that people like. So I'm not gonna mention his name, but he's
no. It's funny because even Jags Twitter, when they're like, "Oh God, I hate all Colts fans except Kyle."
Except for Kyle. So
Right.
Kyle's pretty much universally loved amongst all different types of Twitter, and we just look up to him because. I mean, I don't have to say any names, but I think we all know who we're talking about.
It's over. We're done. He's joining us. He's part of the family now. Okay, so let's get started on some watch list type material here. Wide receivers, tight ends, and before we kind of move on to some of these players, Garrett, you had a very good observation. We have to draft. You did. We have to draft a wide receiver next year somewhere.
We do have to draft a wide receiver next year somewhere because not only is the talent at the top, while it is good talent in the top three right now, it's kind of samey talent. I think I remarked earlier this year that really all Moncrief, Ty, and Dorsett, they're all really kind of at their best running a shallow cross or a 9. So and they're not really, none of them are very great after the catch. None of them are particularly adept at the contested catch. And there's not a whole lot of size between the three of them because Ty and Dorsett are so undersized. Moncrief has some nice range. But for getting a fourth guy who has a real, who you would actually want to put on the field with every once in a while, not just as a backup, but as an actual contributor with a different skill set and a viable skill set would be a valuable thing for this offense. So I think we should invest in that, and I would be fine with the mid-round pick going into wide receiver this year, which is weird to hear from me, I know, because I've been so anti investing in wide receivers the last few years, but that's mostly regarding drafting guys like Dorsett in the first round, which is totally unnecessary. I think most of us can agree. But yeah,
I think that is a good point that you bring up. I think we kind of overrated Dorsett's yak, like his yards after catch in college.
Well, a lot of people did.
Just because, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was like a universal thing that we just expected.
Well, not universal because not me. But
okay. Everyone besides Garrett, the wide receivers are. I think we kind of overrated how well he does that. Just because he runs a 4.3 40 doesn't mean that. And we've seen somewhat that he doesn't really break away from tackles and stuff like that. I think that's a good point to bring up. I still think Moncrief's size is an advantage against mostly specific corners, although we know that he doesn't create the most separation. But I mean, the part that you said about they're kind of not limited route runners, because Ty is a great route runner, at least I think in my opinion, but I mean there could be some variation to create there.
Yeah, I wasn't commenting on their route running ability so much as just where their skill sets are as mostly speed-oriented guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we really, I mean, Moncrief, if he can continue what he did last year and turn into a red zone target, and with Dwayne Allen being a red zone target, that's 2 red zone targets when you need 3.
Yeah, you do. And they don't need to be 6'6", but they need to have the body control and coordination and strength to win in tight spaces, and height is good as well.
But a point to bring up about red zone is we could also replace that third target with a receiving running back as like a secondary, tertiary option, which we had with Ahmad Bradshaw when he had all those games with a ridiculous amount of receiving touchdowns in such a short period of time.
Yep.
If only there was a running back in this class who could catch passes out of the backfield, like a slot receiver type.
Well, luckily there are quite a few of them. So we are team running back high in 2017. So let's move on to this watch list here. I think the biggest name comes out of USC, Juju Smith-Schuster. Smith-Schuster, whatever. Juju. Juju. He's a junior. He's 6'2".
He's fast. He's very fast.
I've watched one game of him, and at first it was like, man, they're not throwing it to him, and then I realized he's been covered by Sidney Jones quite a bit, and then when Sidney Jones moved off of him, the dude just absolutely destroyed that game versus Washington. I mean, you got to put the ball in his hands. He was moving quick. He was making great moves. He was making contested catches. It was pretty crazy. I only watched one game of him, honestly, and that was that Washington game, and that was really to watch Sidney Jones, but he was there, and he did some very impressive things. And when Sidney Jones moved back onto him, he did good. He did well. As once he got into a rhythm, he started to do pretty well.
Though there is no chance that we end up with this guy because he's probably going top 10. If you want to talk about a receiver who could improve our yak, not only is Juju incredibly athletic, he's incredibly strong and like a physical runner after the catch, and that's what one of his biggest strengths is.
Yeah, he helped out Cody Kessler so much when I was watching Cody Kessler, just to see the insane break-offs from catches that he had from all other parts of the field.
I love wide receivers who have that yak ability, and especially I love Juju. He's one of my favorite wide receiver prospects in the last few years, mostly just not because I would rank him over everybody else from that time, but I love his attitude, and it really permeates and suffuses everything about his play. It's just he plays you don't see that guy. We always talk about how running backs, like, they run angry. Well, Juju receives angry, I guess. And then he runs angry, usually over people. Yeah, he's kind of a jerk on the field, which is good. I don't see that a lot in wide receivers, which is kind of why I don't take the position as seriously as a lot of other people do, is because I think of it as this kind of like finesse position that really is distasteful to me. But Juju was definitely not that, so I would love if by some miracle he could end up on this roster. That would help us a lot and just make me happy.
Yeah, but that's another first-round wide receiver pick.
You know what? I don't care.
Yeah, it'd be worth it.
Yeah. You know what? Strengthen your strength. We talked about that last year. Why not? Let's do it. Yeah, why not? I'm going to say one more, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. One guy that I watched a lot, and I was very proud of, and not a lot of people were talking about him, but I was very impressed. Josh Reynolds, Texas A&M, 6'4", 195, so he's a stick of a person. But man, the dude was making some serious catches in the Orange Bowl. I mean, they were. You talk about contested catch, he was making them. You talk about a guy who's like a deep game contested catch, can catch, basically you throw a ball up and he's getting it. That was him. He had in his true freshman year, he had 13 touchdowns, and last year he only had 5. But I'm not worried about that. Texas A&M went through a quarterback change last year that was pretty dramatic.
Also, it's just that they have so many other options. They have Christian Kirk and Speedy Noel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyways, I'm interested to see him. I think he needs to put on some more weight, just a little bit. I mean, he probably needs to play at 210, 215, and not lose some of that athleticism. But I was very impressed with him. He made play after play after play. And I'm just, again, this isn't a ranking. Like, we're not ranking, these guys coming out. This is just people who are interested to see how they develop into 2017. And I'm going to be watching A&M quite a bit just because of Myles Garrett, because it's just fun to watch. But on the offensive side, to have something to watch with Josh Reynolds is going to be pretty good. But I'll pass it to our resident wide receiver expert, who's probably got somebody he's interested in watching. Garrett, what do you got?
Oh, it's me? Oh, cool. All right. I do really like Jordan Villeman from Oregon State, and I know that we've already talked about Juju, who's about 6'2", and Reynolds, who's 6'4". Villeman's also about 6'4". So this class has a lot of, as opposed to last year's class, which I did not really care for, this class has a lot of really big, athletic, young guys, and Villeman is certainly one of them. He does not belong on that Oregon State roster. I have no idea how he ended up there, but it's kind of a travesty because he's got nobody to throw him the ball, really, although Oregon State does have a history of wide receiver prospects recently. So he can kind of do everything that Reynolds can do. You just described. I think I might actually prefer him to Reynolds, but I expect the hype on him to be much lower, precisely because his production won't be as high and he won't be at as many, or if any, primetime games. So he could be a guy that you could get maybe in the 3rd round, and that would be just, oh my God, insane value. That would solve all of our problems, really. Well, in that one position group.
Is Oregon State in the Pac?
It is. Sort of.
Pac-12 after dark, man.
Yeah.
I love it. I really do. I love it. I mean, you get that 11:30 Washington Oregon State game, like 11:30 Eastern time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great. I mean, you're going
so many Arizona State games.
56 in overtime.
The late
Red Bull.
Yeah.
West Coast Twitter's popping.
Yeah.
I love it. Brian, who do you got?
I mean, I kind of have a list. I mean, Juju Smith is good. Mike Williams is good. Pre-podcast, I was talking, Artavis Scott, who I've watched since like his freshman year, because that's when I was like just in love with Deshaun Watson and everything that the offense was doing. I saw Artavis Scott, and he was like their good slot guy. He did like the end arounds. He was like the Percy Harvin of the offense. And then when Mike Williams went down with that terrible neck injury last year, Artavis Scott was the number 1 option, and he absolutely owned it, and he did great stuff. I think he does kick returns. I think he does special teams, but I can't remember if that's actually true or not. Don't hold me to that. But I mean, I don't want to go against Garrett, but like I'm really anti taking wide receiver at this point. I just can't fathom spending more capital on the position when, I mean, T.Y. Hilton's a borderline top 10 talent. We'll see what Moncrief can do. But even if Moncrief doesn't really progress even anymore at like his worst, he's still what, at least 700-800 yards, maybe like 8 or 9 touchdowns in Dorsett. And I obviously it would be great to have four good wide receivers, but this team is just so depleted at so many other spots. And I just keep bringing it back to 2014 when Andrew Luck had his career year throwing like I think it was around 270 or 280 passes to Kobe Fleener, to Hakeem Nicks, and to Reggie Wayne, all in 2014. And it just makes me realize that, okay, if Reggie Wayne or if Andrew Luck can put up those numbers with that kind of talent, why do we really have to invest so much? And that's also when the offensive line was a lot worse. And hopefully Dwayne's better. Hopefully it's a better offensive system. And really, I think really the most important part is running back in all this, because what Bradshaw was able to do in 2014, just we were talking about the amount of touchdowns that he had, and I think it was like 7 touchdowns in like 7 or 8 games or something like that. So I'm just valuing running back so much more over wide receiver. I would understand if they took a flyer on like a 6'4" guy, who was like 220 and had like tested very well, but I can't get behind wide receiver at this point, just because I really don't think it's that bad of a problem, especially when, that's what the NFL is. There's so many good wide receivers, and everyone, I mean, like, even teams that don't have really that good wide receivers are still putting up numbers just because that's the way the offensive passing attack is working. So I'm really, really against it.
Okay.
Like, the earliest I would be comfortable with a wide receiver is like 6th round.
I'm going to just go ahead and say that Garrett probably wasn't like, let's draft a wide receiver in round
No,
one.
no, I'm not. But
I'm just past caring because so much trauma has already been done to me that I'm beyond. I won't argue this anymore. But let me ask you guys this. I want to take a quick survey here between the 4 of us. Where do you rank the Colts wide receiver core, like, compared to the rest of the league? Are we top 20, top 10, top 5? I don't want to poison your responses. I want to hear.
2015 ruined everything because I don't know anything about.
Okay, after 2014, what would you have said?
I would
Top
have
10.
Top 10. You would have said.
We thought
top
it was
10.
the best going in with Andre Johnson, hopefully Deron Carter. We thought it was the best, the deepest. So
Alex,
that
what
was
about
a
you?
lot.
Top 15, top 12.
I'd say
I
top
feel like
10.
that was more realistic after 2014, but now, I mean, I really just think we had time to cool our jets. And looking at just like you were talking about, there are a lot of other good teams or good receiving corps in this league, and I think most of them are better than ours. I'm going to say it. Like, I don't think we're probably a top 16-ish receiving corps, but I really think it could be a lot better, and we could help our quarterback.
I just
So
think
if we could do that with the 3rd round or 2nd round pick, then
it just amazes me how much this offense was able to do with just like the 2014 team was so bad. Like Hakeem Nicks was bad. Reggie Wayne was washed. Kobe Fleener obviously wasn't good.
Yeah,
So, and the offensive line was probably 2014 offensive line before at least the playoffs was probably the worst lineup of the 5 since the Grigson era, if I recall correctly. So it's just so weird because obviously that was Luck just kind of playing a lot of hero ball, and that's not what you want. But I'm just thinking, with a new offense, hopefully improved offensive line, I still think after Luck, obviously, and an improved offensive line, I just think that like running back, it can be so focal to this offense.
Yeah, but
No, I agree. I think a lot of people take a look at this wide receiver core that we have, and they're projecting like this wide receiver core could be top whatever. This wide receiver core could do such and such and such.
Because we know what Hilton is, and Moncrief, we're really, really expecting a lot from Moncrief, especially after how he played in the first half of last season with Andrew Luck and how well they fit to each other. And then obviously Dorsett is just this massive question mark.
Right. Back to the watch list. Alex, who do you got?
A few guys. Katie Cannon from Baylor. He's not Corey Coleman, but he's pretty close. He's a really good deep threat, about 6 foot, 180, similar size to Coleman. He didn't produce a lot last year, but that's because Baylor was starting like a tight end quarterback by the end of the year. He'll probably go on day 2, and he'd be a little redundant with us because, again, he's the guy who excels at running those 9 routes. So a guy who would fit more with us maybe is I like Cooper Kupp, who was Vernon Adams' best receiver when he was at Eastern Washington. He put up like his stats for the past years: 1,600 yards, 1,400 yards, and 1,600 yards. He's a production monster against this slightly lower level competition. He's your typical white wide receiver in the fact that he's not athletic, but he's or not speedy, I should say. But he can catch, and he can do. He's a good yak player, and so I'll be interested to see what he does if he can get on a national spotlight. And then Corey Davis from Western Michigan. Saw him for the first time up close when he played Ohio State this year. He and Braverman, they torched us in the fact that Ohio State was close to losing that game, and it was mainly because their wide receivers were so good. Corey Davis is 6'3". He can run. He's if he was at USC or any of these top schools, I think he'd be easily a top 1 or 2 talent in this class.
I don't rate him athletically with the rest of the top guys in this class, though. Do you? Like you said, he can run, but I don't think he's running.
That is a good point. He is not. Athletically, I don't think he's going to test as well, but he's going to.
But his coordination and body control are really
right.
Like he's a good react player, even though he isn't a supreme athlete.
Yep.
A good yak guy that I don't know if it's gotten much buzz at all is Stacey Cooley from Miami. I watched 2 games of his earlier this week, kind of getting ready for this watch list, because he has a lot of games on Draft Breakdown, just to be honest. And he was one of those guys, you put the ball in his hand, he's making some good moves. He's got some speed, and he's 6'2". So it's interesting. I mean, again, this isn't a ranking, and I'm not saying that these guys are good, but just someone to watch. Another guy I'm very interested to watch in the Big Ten is Simi Cobbs Jr. from Indiana. He had to play with Nate Sudfeld last year. I mean, bless him.
NFL prospect Nate Sudfeld.
yeah, okay. Bless his heart. He had to play with Nate Sudfeld last year, but he made some really good adjustments on some very, very bad passes.
We could use that,
and we could definitely. But going, just kind of seeing who their quarterback is. I have no idea. Hoosier football is. I'm from Indiana, so I can say Hoosier football sucks, has always sucked, and will always suck. So go Purdue. But anyways, yeah, that's not a good line. I've been a Boilermaker my whole life, but anyways, Simi Cobbs, see who their quarterback is. I don't know who it is, don't care who it is, but maybe he's a little bit better than Sudfeld, which shouldn't be too hard to do, because he's another big guy. I think he's 6'3". So I mean, there's a lot of bigger receivers with some speed coming out in this class, which is good, because last year's class was small.
It was small, it was old, and it wasn't fast. I hated that class. And there were still some good guys there, but it just was not entertaining.
Right.
The skill positions across the board this year are much better. I think even quarterback is a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I agree. 2 other guys before I'll be done after these 2 for me. The LSU guys, Malachi Dupree and Draven Durrell. Interested to see those guys again. They were pretty nasty tandem last year, but they also have Fournette to, clear the box. So.
Well, we got Les Miles too, so. Yeah. It doesn't matter if the box is clear; they're still running that ball.
That's true. You're right. But it'll be interesting to see those guys. I think both those guys are pretty interesting in their own right. And I couldn't tell you which one I like better, because I'm not really watching their wide receivers when I'm watching the LSU tape. I'm watching their center and Leonard Fournette, because Evan Bosick, I think his name's Evan, but Bosick is an animal on Ryan Kelly's level coming out next year. Garrett, you have anybody else?
I was gonna say Corey Davis. Alex beat me to it. No, that's about all I can think of.
Okay, Brian?
Just looking for the Clemson guys, Mike Williams and Artavis Scott. Seeing how Mike Williams rebounds, just because a lot of people saw him as a first-round talent going into last season.
Alex?
2 more Big Ten guys, and then I'm done. Chris Godwin, I'm not sure how to say his last name, but he was for Penn State last year. He was the only guy who could manage to do anything as a wide receiver, tight end for that team, because Christian Hackenberg was not good, but Goodwin put up I think 1,000 yards last year. 6'1", is not going to run very fast, late round guy, but I like his production. He's a guy to keep an eye on if Penn State can improve on quarterback play. And then Michigan receiver Jehu Chesson, again, not a school with an established quarterback yet, but did well. He's slower, but he's 6'3" and plays like it.
Alex, that's a lot of slander for a second-round quarterback. Also, speaking of Penn State, Deshaun Hamilton is probably going to get his name thrown around just because he's a name. He's really not good. Like, he's really bad. I'm just surprised that he's actually even being seen as a prospect, because I remember hearing his name when we were all hyping up Christian Hackenberg, and that was his go-to guy, and he just had so many drops, and almost all of his yards came off of bubble screens. So, yeah, I'm not buying any hype, if there's any hype at all whatsoever, around Deshaun Hamilton.
Fair enough. All right, this list will even be shorter. Tight ends, and I only wanted to do tight ends for one reason. Jake Butt.
Yeah, baby.
Jake Butt. I gotta have him on my team. I'll buy a Butt jersey day one. I mean, that's easy, and I hope his number is 69.
69, yeah.
Jake Butt, 69. Rule change for tight end. I'm on it. Bring it on. Yeah, man. I am totally for it. But anyways, all jokes aside, Jake's actually really good tight end, all around kind of guy. Another name that you'll hear is O.J. Howard, who torched our boy T.J. Green in the national championship game. Pretty bad. He had an interesting season last year. Because you try and watch some of his earlier games from that year, he's non-existent. He's not there. He's not doing much. Once they realized, oh, hey, we've got this kind of athletic, freakish kind of guy named O.J. Howard here, let's give him the ball.
Yeah, Alabama kind of schemed him really, really weird. Obviously, they're a heavy run team, and they've never really had much at the quarterback to be able to create offense for a tight end. But I hope that they actually utilize him correctly this year to his skill set to see exactly how good he is.
Yeah.
That's what was bizarre, is the fact that his best game came in the most important game, and they finally decided, okay, let's let this athletic guy carry us.
Alabama, Clemson walked into Alabama's office and was sticking him up, and then Alabama reached into the desk drawer and pulled out O.J. Howard.
Because he was non-existent. He really wasn't. The whole season, he wasn't there. But then, so that's why, again, watch list. See if they can continue to do that this year. Move him around. He's going to be a receiving tight end. I watched him block. Unless he improves a lot, he's not going to be, the best. But another guy, Jordan Leggett from Clemson. These are all seniors, by the way.
Leggett also really came on his own in that national championship game too.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of an unknown before that.
Yeah. So interesting to see how he goes forward. And Evan Ingram from Ole Miss.
He was a converted wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
And he might play receiver in the NFL.
Next level. Yeah. I've been watching him. I think that's where he'll be.
He's skinny, isn't he?
He's skinny.
Yeah.
He looks skinny for a wide receiver, and he's playing tight end.
He makes some really good plays, though.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have anybody else on this?
Bucky Hodges from Virginia Tech's just a name, and I was just doing more research about him today, and he was a 4-star quarterback recruit coming out of high school, and I thought that was interesting that he somehow ended up as a tight end. But we'll see more this year about obviously Dwayne's health and what we expect out of Jack Doyle. Obviously, there's literally nothing after that, so we could definitely see a tight end drafted at some point within the 2017 NFL draft.
I've got Dalton Schultz from Stanford. He's, I think, a true junior next year, so he might not declare, but I'm expecting him to break out this year. He was the top-rated tight end in his high school class, and he can block. They took Austin Hooper, who was, I think, a third or second-round pick to the Falcons this year. They took him off the field because Schultz can block better, and he's probably a more reliable receiver as well.
Stanford's had really good success with tight ends, haven't they?
Oh, it's been ridiculous, yeah. And the guys they're recruiting right now are even better.
I'm trying to remember. I know there's
Colby Parkinson is a high school junior right now, and I can already tell he's a prospect.
They've gone from Fleener to Toliolo to Austin Hooper.
Ertz, that's right, yeah.
Forgot about Ertz.
Stanford might be TEU.
That's
Trying to
what
think
that's what like the Twitter account calls it, but I don't know.
really.
Notre Dame knows what
Yeah, Notre Dame had a
On Notre Dame, that's right.
They did have a good run there. All right. Well, anybody have anybody else? I know tight end. I mean, tight end is something. It's an interesting position all around, but I don't really have very many people to watch.
Michigan State, Josiah Price is a senior. He's a really good blocker. Not gonna do anything special, but he's a guy like him on day 3. He had 6. He's a good red zone player. He had 6 touchdowns last year, I'm pretty sure. And Oregon's got a bunch of tight ends, and I think one might become a household name from DraftNix. Guy like Barrow Brown, I could see turn it into that. And then Johnny Munt, I think is how you say his name. He looked good as a freshman and then did nothing the past 2 years. So that doesn't give me much hope, but he looked really good as a freshman. So if he can turn that around, he can become a player.
Interesting. All right, guys. Well, that will do it for today. I don't know. I think we're moving to the defensive side next week.
Mm-hmm.
Probably
Secondary.
Edge. Or Edge.
I thought secondary was next week.
Okay. Well, either one. We'll figure it out. But lots of good edge guys, and actually quite a bit of good secondary guys. Pretty excited about both of those classes because we definitely need help in both. So I think it's linebackers, including edge. So I don't know. But yeah. So that's it for tonight. Thanks everybody for listening. I got to do this. Haven't done this ever. Plea on the podcast. If you listen to us on iTunes, please go rate and review us on iTunes. We would appreciate it. We're trying to do some cool things, and we need to have a good reviews on Twitter or on iTunes to do so. So if you will help us out, that would be appreciated. Keep reading our stuff. Check out Alex's latest piece. Brian has a piece called 5 Plays, a new series that we're going to be starting coming out later this week. I didn't do breakfast because there was no point to talk about the same things that I talked about for the Hall of Fame game. I'll do breakfast for Saturday. It might be a brunch because I've got to do some stuff this whole week and we'll have time to write it before Saturday morning. So we'll do some brunch or some lunch or dinner, whatever you guys want to do. Get some steak and asparagus and put some olive oil on it and rock and roll. So we'll see what we're doing. But thanks guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.